Hey, what's up, my knife people of YouTube? Okay, today we're going to do a cut test, and we're going to do it on this knife by Marbles. The reason I have this 119 on the table is because I don't have a 110, or at least not a 110 in 420 HC. So the reason I'm going to compare these knives is because during sharpening I said that this $5.50 Marbles knife, lockback, that's kind of a 110-ish style knife, feels exactly the same as Buck 420 HC. Now, I know that this knife is not in 420 HC. It's in some cheap China analog of God only knows what. I'm assuming probably a 420A analog. Sorry, my mind is zapped. It's been a long day. But very similar. They're very similar steels, is what I'm getting at. They feel identical on the stones. They're both somewhat gummy. Contrary to popular belief, the Paul Bose heat treat on 420 HC is, well, it's just not that good. I know you hear everybody under the sun say Buck's figured out how to get the most they can out of 420 HC. Well, 420 HC isn't a very good steel to begin with. It is very tough. Past that, not a very good steel. And I'm sorry, but none of the Paul Bose heat treats that are being done are very good. Their S45VN's good. Their Magna Cut's pretty decent. Past that, not very good. So anyhow, you have a buck 110s for the lightweight versions with the plastic handles, but they're around 35 bucks. This knife right here is like 550. Performance wise, I don't think there's going to be any noticeable difference. I believe this knife will cut almost exactly as long as Buck 420 HC will. Now, yes, you also got to factor in this is a China-made knife, and that $35 Buck 110 is a U.S.-made knife, but we're comparing them for exactly what they are. They're a very similar knife. One's $5.50. One's $35. That lightweight Buck feels very cheap in hand. The plastic feels very cheap. This knife does not. That composite material they're using feels very tough. Doesn't feel super cheap in hand. Very smooth. Has very, very similar blade shape. All in all, they're very, very similar knives. So we're going to directly compare Buck 420 HC in a cut test versus whatever this Marble still is. And my gut feeling from the sharpening experience and just the way the steel reacts, they're going to be extremely similar in performance. And if you've seen the Buck 119 cut test, you know that that's not very good. But yeah, I'm gonna expect they're gonna be extremely similar. They both like to hold on to the burr. They both get a foil, a thin, flimsy foil burr that doesn't want to come loose. They're overly soft feeling on the stones. They cut incredibly quickly. And just overall not a very nice sharpening experience. Neither one of them. So I fully expect the performance to be basically identical. So let's do the cut test and find out. Just so you know, the Marbles, I went ahead and did that on a fixed angled system. Just wanted to try it out and see where it was at. The edge is right at 17 degrees per side. However, the only difference is I finished this steel at on a cheap 400 grit. I'm sorry, no, 800 grit diamond stones that come with that system. So the the buck was finished on a much nicer stone. It definitely had a better quality edge. Plus, this is multiple edges in, so I know I'm in good steel. This is not burnt. This is actually the first sharpening. Normally, I won't test until edge 4. That way, if there's any burnt steel on the edge, I should be past it. But in this case, I don't really think it's going to matter all that much. I believe they'll perform basically identical. So the buck did definitely have a better edge, a better quality edge. I did it freehand, spent more time on it, and it's just an overall better edge. So the marbles is already at a slight disadvantage. I believe a well done freehand edge will be better in quality than a well done fixed angle edge. So yeah, the marbles is already at a slight disadvantage, but I really don't think it will matter. So let's do the cut test and see where these guys stack up. Alrighty guys, so we completed it. 249.8 feet is what this thing cut. Yeah, so what, 30-40 feet less than buck 420 HC. Remember, this is the first sharpening too. More than likely some heat fatigue steel there from the factory sharpening, so it'll probably get better over the next couple edges. I would expect it to be neck and neck with 420 HC from buck. Yeah. Now I will say, once this edge started to give up, it gave up very, very quickly. It didn't slowly decline like most steels do, where they'll develop a little nick, and then they'll just get a little dull, or that nick will get a little more catchy over time. This basically went from just cutting nicely to starting to catch a little bit to boom, dull. This edge is definitely duller than most of the edges after this test. Normally these edges are still quite sharp. They just got some little catches, and that's what tears the paper. But this and that last probably 30 cuts just dulled like crazy. Yeah, definitely catching and tearing. I mean, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not terribly dull, but it's done for. This edge probably will not strop back, or at least not strop back to shaving. Yeah. So, and I feel multiple little catches. The cutting, well, it was done right here. I don't know if you can see that on camera. the hazing, but where there you go, you can see it now. So that's all the cutting was done right here. It's about a 1-inch section. Yeah, and it's, you can clearly feel that this edge is really gone. It's not just tearing the paper from the catches, it's tearing the paper because it's blunted. But performance wise, it's right there on par with Buck 420 HC and a $5, and this is in a $5 knife. So it baffles my mind. It really does. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. For $6, $5.50, this is not a bad little knife. And Buck really needs to step their game up.